we're pouring water into a bathtub that has a giant hole ripped in the bottom.
Yang gang, how's it hanging, guys? How's it hanging, girls? What's up? How's it going? My name is Sean. I am back, and we have Chris Hayes. A few days back, I'm a little late to this, but a few days back, Andrew Yang really kind of dismantled Chris Hayes, just kind of tore him apart. Chris Hayes came in with like these oddly sort of quasi center right talking points, right? And I get that sometimes, if you're questioning a Democratic candidate, you want to have some sort of, devil's advocate type of thing. But normally, if you're a leftist, you want to phrase it in a way that, our viewers don't think that, you know how it goes. But he didn't do that, and he had a lot of weird questions, almost as if he was trying to give some subtle dog whistles as to smear Andrew Yang. But that didn't deter Andrew, dude. He just came in with it, answered every single question on point, didn't mess up. And so I'm going to do a lot of extra commentary in this video just because the most popular video on my channel is kind of controversial in nature, just because I didn't really explain myself as I went. I wasn't doing mic back then. I am now. So let's jump right in, and I'm just going to add my thoughts in wherever I think I need to or whenever I want to. All right, Philly D, man, you want to help me out?
Oh, and let's just jump into it.
When the DNC first announced their debate schedule, they had to figure out how to draw a line for participation that would avoid some of the poll-based weirdness of the RNC's approach back in 2016.
Some of the weirdness of the RNC's approach. See, they didn't have no problem finding or redrawing that line whenever Larry Lessig meet 1% in the debates. Then all of a sudden they needed to be 2%, if you guys remember back then. Well, now it's just, we've got it all figured out. This is just the way to do it, which is, I guess, is good for the DNC because they're so corrupt, right? But yeah, now that they're like, oh, we have everything we have everything spelled out for you now. When last year it was, in a snap of a finger, they just switch up something out of nowhere at the very last second.
So they offer two ways to qualify, one being a polling criteria in which candidates must register 1% or more support in 3 polls publicly released between January 1, 2019 and 14 days prior to the date of the organization debate. The other through fundraising, where candidates may qualify for the debate by demonstrating the campaign has received donations from at least 65,000 unique donors and a minimum of 200 unique donors per state in at least 20 states. All right, the idea, which I think is a good one, is that level of grassroots financial support shows a candidate, even if they're not polling above 1%, has an actual base.
Yes, Chris, thank you for that. We know that's what that means and what that is in place for.
Well, so far, at least 11 official candidates and 2 unofficial candidates have passed that threshold, including Andrew Yang, a 44-year-old tech entrepreneur who is running on a campaign of universal basic income and other things, and has become something of an online sensation. And the aforementioned Andrew Yang joins me now. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Question I ask everyone. First question. Of all the people in America above 35 ages or older, why should you be the President of the United States?
An excellent question, but I guess that's not good enough for Chris. You'll see him double down two more times on that exact question.
Well, America right now is in the 3rd inning of the greatest economic and technological transformation in the history of the country. And I spent the last 7 years helping create thousands of jobs in the Midwest and the South. In my opinion, the reason why Donald Trump is our president today is that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and the swing states. So I'm running for president to let America know it is not immigrants that are causing these economic dislocations, it is technology. And we need to evolve to the next form of our economy as fast as possible.
See, that's a compelling theory of the case about what's happening. But
what, Chris? You guys have been so pro-immigration reform for letting people in, right? Which I might not necessarily agree or disagree with, but that's been the narrative of MSNBC and the left going against Donald Trump, right? Even though Obama deported way more people than the previous however many presidents combined, right? You didn't hear none of that. Anyway, no, Andrew Yang just fed you guys a bone. He just said it's not about immigration. It's about, the automating. Okay, see, even Chris said, well, it sounds good, but he's going to go on and say, just watch.
It's not a compelling theory necessarily what Andrew Yang should be making a million different judgment decisions at the highest level of stakes that include life or death, including military involvement. Like you would be doing it. Why you?
But hold on a second, Chris. Do you understand who's in the White House right now? Okay, whenever you was, filling up your airtime with, 6, 7, 8 hours of an empty podium of Donald Trump, just hoping that to catch a glimpse of him saying something stupid so you can get your ratings to increase, because that's all you're about is getting money and ratings. You're not really about, holding the the politician's feet to the fire. That's not what you're about. So while all that was going on, ethics wasn't really a question, was it? Wasn't really a question. It's kind of like you almost just kind of turned a blind eye to all of that. But now when somebody else is running who might actually have a chance, it's like, well, do you sure you can make those decisions? Do you see who is in the White House right now, Chris? I don't know what you're trying to get at here. I mean, I understand you're just trying to play devil's advocate, but at the same time, yeah, I don't think that this is a guy who would be any less adept than Donald Trump to do that job, right? So, yeah.
Well, I think what's animating a lot of our dysfunctional politics is that our economy is becoming increasingly punitive and inhuman for many, many Americans around the country. So the reason I should be president is that I have a vision that actually helps provide a path forward for tens of millions of American families, which I would suggest would help make our foreign policy more sound, because we'd be making better decisions if people weren't operating from a sense of scarcity at all times.
Not only did he nail that question, but he added so much extra into it of how that would fix a couple extra things. He completely dismantled the whole notion that Chris Hayes was bringing up to, are you sure you could do it? And what they're really trying to do here, guys, is they're trying to slander Yang and try to push Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders, who is now technically establishment, and they're trying to subtly slander Andrew Yang, and they'll do it again coming up soon. But it's subtle, and he's not really coming out abrasive against Andrew Yang, but he is definitely dog whistling to some of the far left radical people that this guy might not be somebody that they might want.
I asked this of other people too. Are you prepared to order people to die or to kill?
Why in the world would that even be a question? Of course, he's not a pacifist. He hasn't said that. Are you trying to act like he's trying to act like, oh, I don't think you've really thought this through. Are you prepared to do this? Like, man, this is kind of embarrassing.
Well, one of the paramount responsibilities of the commander-in-chief is to keep the American people safe. And while raining death on other people is not my first choice, if that's what it would take to keep the American people safe, I'm 100% ready to do just that.
And he nailed it again, man. He's a perfect answer. It's okay, if I have to, I will, but that's not really the first goal. And that's the whole thing about MSNBC. They're technically pro-war. They're technically pro-war. And really, the question from a far leftist like Chris should be something more along the lines of: are you going to do most of what you can to de-escalate and to not to kill people and to not go to war? That's the kind of question you should be asking, Chris. Not, are you prepared to do that? Will you do that? It's, are you going to try to not do that as to the best of your ability, right? Like, I don't understand. Oh man, it's.
You're one of the things you've been sort of pushing is this idea of a universal basic income. It's an idea that's gained a lot of currency recently. It's sort of central, I think, to one of your platform or your vision of how to adapt to what you say is this kind of toxic technological change. What is it?
It's not just a theory, Chris. It's like an economic prospect. Like, it could definitely be a thing, and it's not that he's just pushing it. In fact, overwhelmingly, the most of the bulk of the left actually agrees with UBI, as many libertarians do, and the right. Believe it or not, Andrew Yang can bring the whole country together.
What is universal basic income?
Yeah, and how would it work?
Well, universal basic income is an idea that's been with us since the founding of the country. Thomas Paine was for it, called it the citizen's dividend. Martin Luther King championed it in 1967, called it the guaranteed minimum income. And what it is, it's a policy where every citizen in America gets a certain amount of money to meet our basic needs, no questions asked. So my plan, the freedom dividend, would put $1,000 a month in the hands of every American adult starting at age 18. This would make children and families stronger, would improve our health, nutrition, graduation rates, but it would also help millions of Americans make transitions in this time of historic change.
Yeah, so go ahead and tell us what's wrong with that, Chris. Go ahead and tell us what's the issue with that.
That's what would that be? $33 billion a month, right? Somewhere around there.
So the price tag is a bit less than that, in part because we're already spending hundreds of billions of dollars on many, many programs that in part substitute out the costs. But the big change we have to make to afford this freedom dividend is who's going to win from AI and new technologies. It's going to be Amazon, Google, Facebook, Uber, the biggest tech companies. What we have to do is we have to put the American people in position to benefit from those innovations.
Now, you also have to think that you know that Chris Hayes and his whole entire team has done the research. They know that Andrew Yang has repeated those same words multiple times so more people can hear, right? And it comes off as if Chris is just trying to give him a softball question, a quick platform of a way to get that out to his audience on what it is. Most of his audience knows what it is. What Chris Hayes should be doing if he's an actually, an ethical journalist or even a good interviewer would to preface it and say, so, us on the left, we know what UBI is and it's a good concept and blah, 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 blah. And, paraphrase it real quick and go, and then say, well, how do we put to rest some of the fears that surround it even further? Something along the lines of that. But it's just, he just immediately goes into, oh, well, it should cost this much money a month, right? Like, what are you? Are you feel like an ultra conservative now, Chris? I don't understand.
What? Why? I've met you before. We went to the same university. You seemed like a successful individual. You're 44 years old. Like, what made you think I'm going to run for president of the United States? You never served in public office, correct?
Why was Chris so perplexed by that? He's like, I've known you. I went to school with you, and why you? Why you? Why him? Look who is in office. At this point, there's not very much worse than him. You know what I mean? Like, there's not that many people who would run that we would not want. You know what I mean? Like, that would not be, at the very least, okay, better than what we have. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you so perplexed about, Chris? Like, he keeps going back to why should you run? Like, why shouldn't he? Would be my question. And also, let's not act like, having some sort of background in politics is something that, is a prerequisite to holding some sort of, a high chain of command. Do you see who is in? When you was having 6 hours of empty podium for Donald Trump, you wasn't saying that. You know what I mean? Where was all that then? Well, why would you do this? Why do you think this? It's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, this is like the third time he's asked why you, when his credentials speak for themselves, and he's done the research. He has.
Well, I was an honorary ambassador of entrepreneurship in the Obama administration, and I started a national nonprofit that raised millions of dollars to help create jobs in regions around the country. And the reason I'm running for president is that America does not understand what is happening to us. We're in the third inning of the fourth industrial revolution. And this industrial revolution is going to upend many of our traditional economic understandings. And I'm running for president to help galvanize energy around real solutions.
But we just ran a huge experiment.
I love how he says we just ran a huge experiment. What he means is like us as a country, but what he really means is them, the media. They pushed Donald Trump the narrative. They gave him over almost so many billions of dollars in free airtime. You know what I mean? And no other candidate got hardly 0.1%. Maybe Hillary clocked up a couple percentage points compared to Donald Trump. No. That's what he means is like we did an experiment, and now look at them. That Trump bump, man, they needed it so bad. Those ratings.
Never in the history of the Republic have we had someone have the highest office in the land without military experience or public service experience. I think a lot of people feel like it's an enormously failed experiment. Why roll the dice on that again?
Did he seriously just compare Andrew Yang to Donald Trump? Watch Yang demolish him.
Well, Donald Trump would not be our president today if people thought that our government had been operating at the highest possible levels over the last number of years. Now, Donald Trump is a terrible president because he's a terrible president. But Donald Trump is not necessarily representative of every entrepreneur or other people with different sets of experiences around the country.
The fuck you say to me, you little shit?
Got him, man. He just elbowed. Like, seriously, of course, not every entrepreneur is the same. Just like not every single daytime talk show or political analyst or interviewer or journalist is the same. Chris, man, that was rough, dude. That was rough to watch. And now here comes the big smear. If you're really somebody who agrees with Andrew Yang and supports him, you wouldn't even bring this misinformation up, because what he's going to be talking about is online trolls and far right extremists, a very, very minute amount who actually are fans of Andrew Yang, And what he's really talking about is Joe Rogan podcast, but we'll get to that.
Final question. You have a lot of following online, and there's some part of that following online that are some people with some really gnarly views. Like, you have weirdly attracted some white nationalists, some
No, he hasn't.
people in the kind of darker, grosser parts of the internet who have cottoned on to you. What do you think about people with, you know, white supremacist avatars who are supporting you?
Why is that even a question? Everybody would disavow that. It's not even a question, just like he's getting ready to say.
Well, I've completely disavowed any of that sort of support, and I'm the son of immigrants. I do not want the support from people whose views are completely antithetical to what I hold. But I'm focused on trying to solve the problems of the American people, and unfortunately those problems are just gathering strength over time. We have to think much, much bigger about how to build an economy that's trickle up from people, families, and communities up, and that's what my campaign's all about.
All right, Andrew Yang, thank you very much for making time.
No problem.
That was hard to watch. So the media has constantly smeared people like Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, Jimmy Dore as being far right extremists or alt right or, you know, some sort of something like that. So they just blanket that, and because he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, he then got, you know, a huge bump from 4chan again, and so on and so forth. Yes, there are pockets of bad people in every single facet of every single platform. There is horrible Antifa members that watch your show, Chris. Doesn't make you a member of Antifa, and you shouldn't have to come out and constantly denounce that. You're not responsible for the people who are your fans to the largest extent anyway, right? So for him to even phrase this question, it's such misinformation. It's such a blatant lie. He does not have a large following of KKK members. Like, what are you even talking about, dude? What he means is he's talked to people like Sam Harris, people like Joe Rogan, that the mainstream media establishment has called the intellectual dark web, and that's what he means. So when he appears on a Sam Harris podcast, who was originally one of the Four Horsemen with Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, and the other guy, so that's crazy. So because he goes on one or multiples of these shows, all of a sudden he's a racist because they've made that false equivalency and touted that false narrative against those people who are getting way more traction than the mainstream media. That's what's happening here. And the same was a similar situation with the other interviewer that I didn't have any audio with, that I didn't really talk through like this. So there's a lot of this in here, and if you guys like me breaking down stuff like this long form content, you know, smack a like and comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Andrew Yang destroyed him, man. He just destroyed him, and he did it subtly. He didn't do it abrasively, and he's classy, man. He keeps it classy, and that's what we like about it. So anyways, you know, don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys. I'll have more stuff coming out, especially because I think Andrew Yang's getting ready to explode here soon, and I should have that video up by tomorrow. So I'll see you guys around.
So universal basic income. My initial knee-jerk reaction was, get the fuck out of here.
I'm immensely grateful to everyone who's gotten this campaign to this point, and you haven't seen nothing yet. I mean, we're going to go very, very far together.